Welcome to the Accu-Trade Video Podcast. In this episode, Bob shares how climbing COVID cases and a surprising return player are causing havoc in wholesale pricing.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's Vindo with Robert Hollinshead. Bob, good day to you, sir.
Top of the morning to you, brother.
You want to let's just dive right into things. I know it's an interesting market, and you got some couple of points you want to talk about. So let's do it.
All right, Shorty. So it's going to sound a little crass, I'm afraid, but I guess we've never been accused of being overly polite about things. As we're watching this thing and it was starting to settle down a little bit, and the prices look like they were normalizing, you get your head around things a little bit, and the crazy things that were happening with the late model trucks were starting to dissipate. And, cars weren't bringing over MSRP, were 3 years old. They were starting to come back down to where you actually almost thought that you had a grip on things. And then CNN plowed in. CNN did it. So in other words, CNN and the virus. So as we all experienced the craziest thing in the world that ever occurred ever in the car business, add everything up, add it all up, nothing's even close. If you took it all on one side of the ledger, everything that was nuts before, and then just this thing over the past year and a half, nothing's coming close, right? And we thought we were coming out of that a little bit. You dig it? And then bingo, there it goes. Record cases, record this, record that. And then it occurred to me, right? I don't think you need anything other than a daily report of how many cases there are in Texas and Florida, in this place and that place, to understand the insanity of wholesale pricing, right? In other words, as COVID goes up, directly pegged to it is insanity in wholesale pricing. Direct, right? So the last couple of weeks, we're sitting here, we got 700 cars, you go on the block and normal butterflies, let's get moving, let's see what happens here, bada bing, we're selling everything, right? And next thing you know, boom, and then bang, and then bing, and then boom, and then all of a sudden, the idea that we found normalcy is right out the window. And then when I'm watching who's in, not just in our little thing in Manheim, but in other places, you see asymmetrical people, right? So in our little thing that we track, right, in our normal business, not on the technology side, but on our normal business, we know to really a natural end how many people are logged in to the lane, how many participate, who it is that participates, how often they participate, when they do and when they don't, when they're an observer as opposed to a player. So in the stands or on the field, right? And that changes on a weekly basis. And it's kind of like, are you hungry when you go to the grocery store, or are you just going to the grocery store to see what you got in stock, right? Or are you going to the ball game to play, or are you going to watch? You follow me? And it's all about not just being a player, but being a fan, and then being a fan, and then being a player, right? To understand, where you stand with your attitude about cars, the depth and the breadth of what you're doing when you're appraising. Because that absolutely changes, just like your appetite when you're walking past potato chips, you're not hungry, you're not grabbing them. Walking past potato chips, you got a little growl in the belly, you're grabbing them. Same identical thing happens when it comes to appetite to buy inventory as a acquisition person. So when you add to that the insanity, add everything up that happened in the car business until COVID, on one side, and then on the other side, Hertz is out of business. Avis is gone. They're finished. They're bankrupt. They're done. It's over. Tornadoes blow everything up, and they got no cars. 80 million cars got blown up in a tornado somewhere. God did it, right? So they're done. They're finished. There's nothing to talk about, right? And next thing you know, bingo, out of the clear blue sky, you go to the Fort Lauderdale airport. It's $550 a day to rent a car. from 1999, unlimited aisles, to like some crazy number where it's impossible to imagine. And what happens next? Since they sold all their inventory and everybody bought their inventory, these morons were going out of business. So in other words, forget about them. They got no more cars. Now, what happens next when you're logged in and you're watching what's happening, at the Wall Street of wholesale? Everything, that middle bell curve mud thing, that kind of looks like a rental car. Man, not without a sunroof, and no sun. Don't need an. So anything that's like a normal mud-based car, they're all over it like stink on poop, along with Avis, along with this one, that one, the other one. When you add to that a couple corporate people that are trying to drive top-line revenue, we won't name who they are, that are also kind of blindly buying inventory because they're going to increase their stock value because they're going to double their revenue. So, what they pay don't mean nothing because all they got to do is buy it, make it disappear. Top line revenue flies. When you add those little COVID-driven elements to the normal auction rat putts like us, like the average dealer we've been selling cars to, in my case, for 50 years, the average guy, like the regular guy, that's the backbone of the industry, the backbone of the auction industry, right? When we now have to contend, whether you're a buyer or seller, it's good or bad, with these anomalies that have popped up. Now, these anomalies ain't going to be around forever. You ain't going to get 400 a day for a Malibu at the Orlando airport. That ain't going to last forever. And they're going to get their appetite filled. So you could say it's another whatever period of time it is for it to get filled. But until then, these anomalies are in conjunction with all the people that don't get shots. They want to go on trips. They're going to go on a trip. But when they go on a trip, what do they got to do? They got to rent a car. They got to rent a car. The company has to have cars. And now you have like a perfect storm of, from any rational thinking person, of insanity. Now, you can pontificate about it or you can participate in it, right? So pontification is what we're doing here on this little thing, right? The fact is we're going to be participating in it. And as a acquisition person, when you're going to be on doing your little proxies or doing whatever you do, or seat of your pants, or showing up maybe someplace to buy a car, you have all these other things to contend with. Then you have to think about who the best end user is. Who the best end user is. You can't contend with somebody that can get $275 a day to rent a car. For the week it's $1,275. So they rent the car 5 weeks. It's 5 G's. They made their money. So if that happens the last 10 weeks, they doubled their money, right? That's different than because you're competing with somebody that's in a different business with the same commodity, right? So it turns out to me, as a participant / observer, it adds extra complications. It's no longer arithmetic. It's beyond algebra. It's actually like calculus in terms of all the ins and outs and who did it and why they did it, and Carvana did the thing and a other thing, and all these goofy things are all flying around. And then when you take the next step back off of that, get your nose off of being the analyst and the pontificator, you got to just stop and think about, does it really make any difference who is going to buy the car, as long as you know that you can duplicate that price? And if you're in a position to buy the car and you can resell it for whatever reasons that you're going to actually buy that car, right? It becomes like a moot point. I guess the moral of the story is, being a moot point, you're better off with the knowledge of what the ingredients are to get you to the point that we're at. Because as you got to stop and think about this now. Again, they're not going to continue to buy cars. The rental car companies won't continue to buy cars forever. It's not going to happen, right? So when you think about when they're in the market or when they're out of the market, what does it do to your individual, let's call it calculation, at 2 seconds of when you got that itch to do it or not do it? What's it do to your decision to actually acquire or not, to stretch on a trade or not, right? It just turns out to be like I would say, one more level of understanding of the intricacies of what we do. This leads then to the last piece of this, Shawnee, because we don't want to get people goofy with this. Who is the best end user, right? So when you're trading cars or you have cars in inventory that turn out to be something that you renting a car is not retail, except renting a car is retail if the rental car company is willing to pay as much or more than what you'd be able to retail the car for. And they're doing it for a different reason. They're not in your business of retailing the car. They're in the business of gaffing the consumer at market value to actually put it on the highway. It's a very weird thing, obviously COVID related. So when we're saying that the pricing is directly pegged to CNN yapping about 4,000 cases a minute in this place and that place. In other words, it's not like people are thinking about that, but it's directly related to the whole chip scarcity, the car scarcity, all the other bullshit that goes with it. It's not bullshit. I'm sorry to say that. All the other items that are involved in this, and how the net end result is, all of us have to deal with, in our case, it's actually a good thing when Hertz is buying. It's like having a retail customer in the lane, which is illegal, but they're not a retail customer, even though they're a retail customer, right? From a buyer standpoint, it's probably not a good thing because, as we can see, they're snugging them cars right up to what they would be worth, on the best day of its life. So if you're like in the need for that kind of category of car, it's going to be very difficult to drag them hamburgers home. I don't know if any of that made any sense, Sean, but when I was watching last week in particular, as the market skyrocketed, way better than what I anticipated when we went into the arena. It was shocking, actually. And then when you think about it, the world's coming to an end because COVID's going up like one of these rockets that are going up into outer space. You know what I mean? It's very weird. It doesn't make any sense. Unfortunately, it's a fact, so you can't deny it, right?
Yeah, I love
Did
that.
I put you to sleep, Shawnee, me boy? Are you snoring on the other end here?
No, sir. No? I just love the part.
Hello.
Competing with somebody in a different business with the exact same commodity. And, I guess, I think you mentioned a bushel of corn to me once, and some people make cornflakes and some people use that bushel to make Doritos. And it's kind of different.
It's a commodity. Everybody's got a better end use, and that's what drives value. It's identical to the commoditization of anything. A VIN is commoditized based in an open market, aggregated cars, aggregated buyers, to identify the best end user. The best end user can be the brand-specific dealer. Could be the sharecropping wholesale dealer. It could be a sharecropper used car dealer, buyer, payer, whatever. Or, in this case, an asymmetrical buyer, right? Rental car companies. Unbelievable, but true. Their appetite can't be insatiable. It's not going to be insatiable. You know what I mean? It seems like it is at the moment, but I can't imagine that it's going to be. And if it is, hold on to your britches. The base number of those cars. See, this is the other weird thing. When we have a tool that we're telling a dealer, target trade, what you'd love to trade the car for, right? Target retail. I'm sorry, target or wholesale. So target auction price, a price that you should be able to duplicate no matter who you are. Not you're the greatest wholesaler in the world, you're going to get $3,000 over that. That's an anomaly. That's not a duplication of circumstances. Not many people can duplicate that, right? So it's not realistic to pontificate a dealer to be trading a car for target retail if they don't have access to the broader market. That's the whole theory behind our tool set, right? So you can't tell dealers that, Hertz is buying Camrys and you should trade the Camry for $4,000 more than it's worth to you in your localized marketplace. You can't do that. You become dysfunctional. The transparency between the dealer and the consumer becomes false, right? Because the dealer can't meet the expectations of being the best end user on that car, because it just isn't true. If that were true, you'd only need one person in every auction because they'll buy all the cars because they're the best end user. That ain't the way it works. You follow me? Everybody's appetite's based on, that's why you got puts and calls on commodities, man. You got a need for X amount iron ore. Well, you're not going to buy all the iron ore in the world if the competitors also are willing to pay X amount of money. You now have the commoditized value. That's what we do with VINs, right, Sean?
100%. And I think that's a great way to end it for today. Thank you, Bob.
Got you filled up today, Shawnee? All right. Have fun, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every week for a new episode where we chat with Bob Hollinshead, founder of Accu-Trade and the largest independent vehicle wholesaler in North America.